I'm just gonna have a really loosey-goosey like work day in my life. I'm not gonna show anything fun. It's just gonna be me working because I'm going a bit insane at the moment. This is just so I don't know, it's so hard right now. It's not like I feel like I'm just really trying to make sure that everything that I need to be in the method section is going to be in the method section. I'm worried my method section is not going to be right. I'm not going to do it well enough. All these things. It's been a really like the hardest part because again, I don't have like a anyone to speak to about this. Like, okay, so I'm going to show you guys like what I've been thinking today, and I'm just going to have it like go on for the day. I'm going to be working on this all day, just on and off with my other job too. I'll show you what I'm doing today. I'm working on putting everything into my literature review document right now. It's 71 pages of notes. Okay, 71 pages. And I'm back to reading some of the texts that are basically about time dependent reorganization of brain circuitry. So basically, the idea is that you're like over time, your brain moves certain things to certain places. And so the way that where the memory is coming from or what part of the brain is navigating that memory is dependent on time. So basically, in the first chunk of time that you have a memory, it's stored in the hippocampus. The hippocampus is almost like in charge, right? And then it starts to all move into the neocortex, and from there, the hippocampus is not really so much of a part in those memories. Let's say you get like a brain lesion within like the first 5 days of making a memory or so. Those memories that you made recently are gonna probably you're not gonna be able to access those memories anymore. Like you're gonna have amnesia, but the memories that you made like before then, like let's say the memories you made 2 months ago, you might still be able to access those because their different parts are responsible at different times. Okay, so in one of my past videos about long-term memory, I made this connection essentially. I'm going to show you my chat GPT because we were talking about it. Said, let's have a talk. So basically my whole idea, okay, why I think that people, for example, take a long time to remember something or memories come back at a later time. One of the pivotal moments of for me in neuroscience, getting interested in neuroscience, is that I actually, during my Title IX trial, they had an expert witness come in and basically explain the neuroscience of trauma, which I had never learned. And she explained everything. And she basically, one of the things that she explained is basically that actually, for example, if somebody goes through a traumatic situation, you would think that you should ask them right away what happened because that's when your memory is the freshest. But trauma works differently. So you should actually police have gotten better and more accurate results, more accurate information about what happened in like a crime scene or something, asking maybe like a few days later because the shock is worn off, the dissociation is like changed, right? So one of the uh big sticking points of the trauma model, as in the trauma model versus fantasy model of dissociation, is they say, so the fantasy model people basically say that if dissociation were fake, then people or people were confabulating it, or they thought that that they were dissociating when it wasn't real. Then people who went through a traumatic situation, like they would just be always in a state of dissociation in a sense because it's just fake, right? So why would it go away? But for people who have gone through a traumatic situation, they experience something called peri-traumatic dissociation in that trauma. So they were dissociating while they were in the trauma. Basically, they start with really high levels of dissociation, and over time, the dissociation starts to go down, down, down. Okay, I'm gonna link the video again. You guys can watch it if you're really interested in seeing how I made this connection, when I made it, like more information, I'll probably explain it better, right? So there's two different things that I personally think are happening when it comes to that. First of all, is that I've basically been reading these rat model studies, which is what I'm basing my neural network off of, that basically shows that people who are, or rats who are in inescapable stress, they have this chemical called acetylcholine that's basically going off like at extremely high rates, much like rather than at 100%, it's at it's like 170%. Like it's really high compared to normal rats, right? And basically, as they leave the stressor, the acetylcholine goes down, but it doesn't go all the way down. It's still 100 something%, but it starts to go down, 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 right? So it doesn't just immediately go away because you leave the trauma. I'm thinking that I think those chemicals are causing the dissociation, and I think that in that case of like, okay, over time, you get a better understand. You can explain the trauma more. Basically, I think it's because that acetylcholine is going down. That's the first thing. But the second thing is that I do think that over time, your brain moves things from hippocampal memory to long-term memory, right? Because that's how it works. It's time dependent. Okay, so over time, I think in general, over time, you're gonna have better access to that memory. That's my thinking. And so I do think that those two things go together, and that's why you get, because actually I would say that if the acetylcholine is higher, maybe over the days after a traumatic situation, the hours after a traumatic situation, that means it's taking longer for the acetylcholine to get low enough for people to start encoding the memory. So they would be start encoding, not encoding actually, consolidating those memories into long-term memory later than somebody who didn't have that traumatic period or traumatic situation. Okay, that's my theory. Don't take my word for it yet, but that is my theory. And so I told all this to ChatGPT. Okay, I told it my full theory. I said, so I thought that this gradual increase not only mirrored the way ACH worked, but also points to some of these temporally graded structures where over time, people are able to better access their memories because things move from hippocampal memory to cortical memory. And so it basically told me like it told me my thing back. And then there's that hippocampal to cortical move, right? So I'm basically saying that these all connect, I think, to show like to explain why the trauma works the way that it does. I've been asking ChatGPT to tell me everything like a rigorous reviewer. They'd likely say it's an elegant parallel, but they'd push for these questions, right? Now, here's my problem. How do I show this parallel in a neural network related to rats? Is it even possible? I don't know. I don't know if it is, but it sucks because I think this is it. But maybe I need to sort it out so that's only one or the other. I don't know. I was asking ChatGPT earlier. I started to think because I was reading that study and putting all the notes in. I was like, for my study, is it possible to see how the information looks at a 5 versus 35-day mark for each group? This is the thing, is first of all that it starts to get so complicated because there's so many other factors that can go on in that, like, oh my gosh, that's just like, it's, I feel like I'm leaving so much room for error doing it that way is the first thing. The second thing is that all of the studies that I have are basically for rats that had long, like, that stress for just like a day. Okay, yeah, they were going through that inescapable stress for like 15 minutes, but 15 minutes is just one day. You might be stressed out, like overly stressed out, but you're not gonna be like completely horribly traumatized, okay? I just feel like it's starting to get too many elements in it where it's like, I don't know, they can't all go together, or I'm leaving so much space for like things to be picked apart. You get me? It could just be that I just reference all of this in my intro section, or reference all this in my conclusion, and like just point to the possibility of that being the case. And I don't think that's a bad idea. That might be what I have to do, but it just sucks because I do think that those go together, like, and I've been doing this reading that's related to this. Again, I don't think it's like I have to throw the reading away. It's most definitely still going to be in my paper because I still have to explain the consolidation process and how it works, but it just sucks because I wish that I could get this into my neural network somehow, but there's just too much issue. So here I said my worry is that one day later recall or immediate recall might point to the effects of high acetylcholine on memory consolidation and recall, but maybe won't point well enough to the temporal grading effect from, though for me that's an important part because it shows why PTSD happens and dissociative amnesia. If things can't move into long-term memory, they can't be used or navigated well. So is one day of severe trauma enough to show this in a rat though? And yeah, it's not really enough at all, which I was thinking, but that really sucks. I don't think that, I mean, I'm gonna still do more reading, so who knows, I might find some way through that, but there are actually plenty of studies about animals going through like prolonged stress or like a few days of a stressor, because it says that like it's not enough, obviously. Like for acute effects, yes, but for this temporal grading effect, you have to wait long enough for that to occur. I just don't think that weeks later the rat would still be traumatized by 15 minutes of prolonged swimming. I might be wrong. Again, I can model different things. It actually said that I should, whatever I'm modeling, I should model it like 30 to 50 times. So I'm going to play around. I'm going to see if there's more studies. But I just kind of been like, oh, that sucks because that would be an amazing thing to show. What is the recall like at day 5 and what is the recall like at day 25? It's just that I am opening myself up to so many other potential issues. You get me? I'm trying to keep it simple because again, this is my first time doing this. So I'm like, I want to keep it simple enough for me to get the satisfaction of like I did it, but I don't want, I feel like the other thing about it being nice and clean is that if it's clean, then it's like, okay, it's a good experiment for me to run personally because I don't feel like an expert enough to really navigate all of the potential like different dynamics of this. So this is what it says I would need to do if I wanted to test that. So I'm already going to do this. Give it each group an acetylcholine decay function after the trauma. That was already in the plan because I know that's how acetylcholine works. Simulate recall at multiple time points like your 5 versus 35 days idea, and then see if high arousal and slow ACH decay produce early fragmentation that resolves partially over time. What I could do is I could read more papers about rats that are going through like prolonged as in multiple days of trauma. But again, it's been really kind of hard because it's like it's hard to do almost like you want to basically I feel like I should be modeling something that's already essentially been done onto the neural network and not go too far beyond what's already within the scope of being done because then it just gets more realistic, or like just more based. I feel like if I start making it like a whole new experiment that's never been done before or something and mixing together all these different ideas into one, it's like, is that realistic though? Like, you get me? I don't know. Like, let's ask it. What I'm thinking is that I could try to find another study. I don't know if there'd be another study where they make rats do prolonged swimming for multiple days at a time. It doesn't have to be the swimming though. It could be like most tail shocks for multiple days. But it needs to be something that has already been done so I can be like, okay, this is what happens in tail shocks with the acetylcholine, and this is what happened in tail shocks for multiple days at a time. But again, let's see. So let's say I mix the numbers of the prolonged stress. Oh, no. I meant to say ACH. ACH study with a prolonged stress number study of rats that have gone through phase of trauma. Is it valid to blend those together? Let's see if we can actually, yeah, see, that's what I'm saying. I know that it's going to be like that, that it wouldn't really be like that good. I think I might just have to give up on that part and just incorporate it into like my intro and stuff, but it's okay because I don't even know. I mean, that's just my theory, but that's so true too. Maybe the acetylcholine would be different if somebody's been doing something for days. Exactly. Yeah, no, I agree. I fully agree with that. So, okay, I'll just argue that like in my paper. Yeah, no, it's not a good idea. I'm glad that ChatGPT is actually saying that too and not trying to be like, "Great job, friend." Yeah, we can't do that. That's so sad. No, but I'm still gonna mention it. I'm still gonna find a way to like basically I think I'm gonna say my conclusion, like that would be another good thing to look at. But I do personally think that there's something about that connection that is creating dissociative amnesia. Because my thinking is that if something can't encode for like a while because of the ACH, I don't know, you guys get me, right? It's like if it can never encode into long-term memory, like it's taking too long. Like if the acetylcholine is blocking it from encoding, then it's prolonging that move from hippocampal memory to long-term memory. One day maybe I'll be a researcher and then I can actually look at this in rats. I can make my own rat study. Um, Hopefully that's like one day in the distant future. But okay, we're gonna go back to putting things into my literature review, but I've been going a little bit insane right now about this method section and just hoping that everything's okay and just hoping that I'm gonna get everything I need to get into it. And it's just hard. I feel like I can't wrap my head around it fully yet. But yeah. It's honestly sort of getting to the point in this project where I feel like I'm going insane every day. And I'm like, I don't, I'm so tired. I actually adore it. I love doing it. But I think that it's just getting to this stressful point where, well, right now, before it was all reading. So every day was something different. Now it's just been like a lot of stressful thinking and copying things into my notes section. And it's been a bit draining. I'm so ready to be like on to the next part too. Like I'm tired of putting things into my literature review section, but also I was trying to get to 60 texts. It's been my thing this whole time. I'm I'm at like 52, 53, and I've kind of stopped reading because I was like, well, before I go into the next part, I want to get my old text into the literature review, but I might do a bit of both because I'm just tired. And some things I think won't take that long, so these are going to be texts here. Let's see if we can find these. Again, my whole big thing, like my whole thought process for this whole my whole big thought process has been just like see what happens if you keep going. I don't want to give up, you know? So I gotta just trudge along, but I'm getting quite tired. Okay, yes. We love free copies of books. This actually looks like a great book that I wish I had found earlier. Like I wish I had had this from the beginning because it looks like it has a lot of good information. I have a trip soon, like I'm going abroad, and I think I'll probably keep reading while I'm there. Like I'll just read more text. Let me remind myself what we're looking for. CA3 and CA1 hippocampal neuron counts. I'm going insane. What do I need again? This is a flop day. This is a flop day. I'm so tired. I'm so tired of working on this. Genuinely. And I also can't not work on it. That's the thing though. If I don't do it, I go insane. If I do it, I go insane. It drives me insane either way. So it's like I might as well just try to finish it. I'm going, okay, this is actually taking us all the way back to the old stuff. I need to actually remember. Oh my God, I'm going insane. This is so hard. This is so hard. This is actually the hardest thing I've ever done, no lie. Just the sheer amount of information I have to remember because I also just learned this stuff. So it's like this isn't stuff that I have like really stored up in here. Like I have to keep reminding myself. I'm gonna see what ChatGPT said I should have. I need to think about which of these things is being impacted, which means looking through all my texts. Oh my God, I'm going insane. I'm going insane. It sucks to be this close and to have like an actual method section and to have all these texts and be like, I'm going insane. Like, I don't know. This is so much information. Why did I do this? Why did I choose to do this? I know why, but it's like, why? We're looking for a handshake. These things? This is so complicated. Is this what I'm interested in? I don't even remember at this point. It's been so long since I've looked at this. I know that there's going to be inhibitory neurons. Is it these two? I'm sorry. I'm gonna get less lazy. Today's just like today's a flop day. Today's like a lazy day, but it's like, just get it done kind of vibe. So I'm gonna actually put in the work to be like, is this real? Like I don't know, I remember even if this is what I thought was like being affected, but it's like ChatGPT can't really tell me, to be honest. Like I have to tell me, but I'm just gonna look at it for now. I know that there's gonna be inhibitory neurons. That for a fact I know. So let's write down. I do need to know how many like inhibitory neurons are in a rat brain. That one is a yes for sure. And I know that this tab is getting slow again too. Oh, I wasn't even talking about narrative. This is what you said on my other page. It's getting really hard now that I actually have this like fake reviewer. It's like, oh, okay. Now we're getting serious with it. You know what I mean? Now it's like for real, for real. Okay, we have to imagine one day I'm gonna be a neuroscientist. I'm saying it. I have to be. So we have to do this, right? Okay, inhibitory interneurons. I'm like sick to my stomach. Just looking at this, like, no. Actually, something that's been on my list, I made like this big list of all the things I need, is that I actually need to be able to just describe this myself. I actually, in one of my other videos, I had me basically writing out, let me find that. I wrote myself everything that happens, if that makes sense. Like I wrote a description. I need to write that myself for these like interneurons and stuff because obviously I don't understand it well enough. And that's an issue. Not only for my method, but also because I need to explain it to other people. Yes, okay. Here we go. I wrote this. You know what we're gonna do today? I'm gonna copy this in. I'm gonna copy in all of the terms. And all I need basically to do is I want to be able to put every single one of these terms into the story and explain exactly what's happening with each singular part. Once I can fully understand and explain that, like we're moving again. Like we got this, you know? So let's go back. Let's find, oh my God, all of these terms. They were such a hassle to learn in the first place, but here we go again. If I can't explain what each of these does in this context, then like I'm not ready. Like I can't keep going with the project. You get me? I feel like one day, because I want to go into research. I don't want to be a therapist or anything. I hope one day I'm like 46 or something and be like a professor. I've been thinking a lot about this. I'm like, I hope to be a forgiving and kind professor because honestly, I wouldn't have graduated without my professors being nice to me because I think my professors could tell that I was working hard and trying, but I was dealing with like a lot of mental health stuff. So they were really kind to me and like really worked with me. So I wouldn't be here without them. But at the same time, like I want to be someone who really can make it so that people can like learn well. Like I hope I'm a really dedicated professor one day, you know? I don't want to create situations where people are just coasting, you know? Like I want to make you think, you know? I feel like that's my vibe. Or to actually like use stuff in context or use it in a way that makes things interesting. Because I've definitely taken some STEM classes where in their defense, it was because the classes were so big, you know, there's a lot of people. But it's hard with those classes because you're really like oh my gosh, the embarrassment. I waited until my last semester because I would always have a mental health crisis at the end of my semester because I had so much going on. Because I was always having that mental health crisis, I always missed the cutoff for choosing classes. And through that, I basically always like all of the easy science classes got filled up, and we had all these stupid science requirements that we had to take. And so my last semester, ended up taking, first of all, symbolic logic. Symbolic logic, let's stop pretend that was down as a philosophy class. That is not philosophy. Okay. I got a C minus in symbolic logic. It should have been an F most definitely. It's so hard. It's harder than this. Honestly, symbolic logic, I don't know if it's because I was also just mentally ill, but it was like the hardest thing I ever did. I was like, this doesn't even make sense right now. I think it's because the reason is because I kept skipping classes. I didn't go to class because I was like really depressed. And so I probably could have done better if I was actually going to class, but I was like, this is so hard. I thought I could teach it to myself. I couldn't. I was like, it's logic. Logic is logic. No, it is not. It is hard. And the other thing is, so I took a physics for poets class. There wasn't any poetry in the physics for poets class. There was nothing of the kind. It was just physics. I was like, why lie to me? Why get my hopes up? I thought we were going to be like putting this in some kind of poetry context, and we weren't. And honestly, I was actually doing great in that class up until right at the end when I was in my mental health spiral. But like, I was doing okay. But I will say it's hard because it was a really big class, and sometimes you kind of just get lost in the sauce because you're just doing a lot of like looking at PowerPoints and copying things off of PowerPoints. And then of course they did some like demonstrations and stuff, but it's really hard in a big science class if you're not a really, really STEMmy person because I feel like it takes a lot of hands-on work for me to really like grasp everything, or I have to sit with things for like a really long time, you know? Like I have to really think about it. That's what I never liked about math class when I was like in high school. I was like, I hated when they expected you to understand something abstract, but they didn't really put in the work to explain why. Like they're just like, this is how it is. But it's like, I want to know why it's like this. You get me? I don't know how to put it, but I feel like sometimes I just get a little bit like, there's like this conceptual jump that you have to make that isn't that intuitive for me. So I would get a little bit lost. But I just think it's really hard to learn STEM in like a super disconnected context like that. Like I think this has been the best way for me to learn science, neuroscience, because I actually had to put in the work to think thoroughly and abstractly about how these concepts work together. And then I was already expected to put them into a hands-on, like into like a more like hands-on real format, you know? So it just gave me that extra incentive to understand every little piece well. And I think it's good to do something like that, do a project or something. Honestly, in every situation, I think it's good. You know, if you're learning poetry, write poetry or, you know, stuff like that. It's like, it's a good way to understand the inner mechanics. Like I only got 100 on one paper. That was my freshman year. I took an intro to philosophy class. I got 100, and it was on a paper about Plato, I think. And we basically had to write about some kind of concept in philosophy, but as if we were writing like Plato or Aristotle, like we had to write as if we were them, like as a character, which was a great assignment. And I think because I'm a creative person naturally, it really clicked for me. And like I was able to really describe it well and understand well what I was talking about. And yeah, I don't know. I think it's good to do stuff like that. Okay. I'm gonna like get off and do this, but I basically, if I can't explain what all of these things are doing and what they all mean and actually write out like how does this work, then I don't understand it well enough to jump into making my neural network at all. Like I actually need to learn this. So okay, bye for like a minute. Okay, so here we are. I've just been actually after I started rewriting everything, it kind of started coming back to me and it wasn't really as hard as I remembered. I'm obviously still not done, but something that I was kind of confused on that I went to ask ChatGPT is that I learned like when I was reading the text about I don't know about acetylcholine, about the CA3, CA1, all of that. I was they always referred to them as pyramidal neurons. So I was a little bit like, okay, there's the pyramidal neurons that they're the excitatory neurons. So they're the ones with the information that are like throwing out the information. And then the PV plus interneurons that are a type of inhibitory neuron, they're basically like stopping the information in coordinated ways so that the information isn't just like bursting out, but it's like in like a wave or in like a proper timing. I need to figure out like my question for me in like a second is which one is the ACH in backing? But anyways, but I was a bit confused because I actually asked ChatGPT on another day like how to ramp up the complexity of my project using these terms. And the term that it gave me to use, well, actually, what's interesting is that in the paper, now I'm looking, I was wondering how this paper did it. This was a paper that I sent in that was about it basically. I'll try to link it below, but it was basically a really good text where the researchers completely recreated the CA1 to CA3 like area of the hippocampus, and they basically tested out the like the place cells in a neural network. And I asked ChatGPT like tell me everything that they used. You know, like I just want to know what did their neural network look like because I wanted to get a sense of like for my own. And they actually used the term pyramidal cells themselves. So, well, I guess they still use excitatory principal neurons, but basically what I asked ChatGPT to ramp it up to that level of detail for my own, which it didn't do 100% great. Like I still had to learn more to figure out, but I was just curious. And it told me excitatory principal neurons, which I was like, what is that? I guess. Now I see actually here that it did say pyramidal cells, but it was different terminology than I had learned this word. So I was like, what is this? Like, I never learned this. I never read this in a text. What is an excitatory principal neuron? So I just asked it myself. And what's interesting is that I meant pyramidal cells, not pyramidal neurons. I guess for precision, I guess I didn't know that that wasn't a precise enough term because before when I was reading, everything was basically saying that the pyramidal cells were like pyramidal neurons were found in the CA1 to CA3. And basically, I think that's just a way that people refer to it also in a neural network. I might be wrong about that, but see, it says in computational modeling, you'll often see principal neuron. So I didn't know that. One of my big questions with ChatGPT has been what is the line in terms of like, is that just common knowledge that I would just know, or should I find a text to reference with the phrase excitatory principal neuron? I haven't quite known. I think that's a pretty new question to ask in terms of like that's not something that I would have learned in my classes because ChatGPT is very new. We're actually going to ask because I feel like I haven't had too much of that issue along the way because I've just been reading everything. So even if I ask ChatGPT to explain like a definition to me, it's like as if I looked it up in the dictionary, you know, but I've never come across the phrase excitatory principal neuron, I think. So I'm going to answer this for everybody to learn right now. Well, I knew that, so I can't cite a source with wording that that they never used. I wasn't planning on that one. Anyways, I'm allowed to rephrase for clarity or specificity in my paper. That's not plagiarism. It's standard academic writing as long as the concept is still supported by my citations. Introduce both terms, and then optional extra citation for clarity. I guess that this is just the equivalent of some if somebody had taught me this in school or if I like looked it up in a dictionary. So I think that's okay. But I guess in case anybody wanted to know, this is the answer here. I just, I think I've been a little bit like when I've been using ChatGPT, I've been wanting to make sure that I know things like that because it's like ChatGPT has been informing me. Of course, I have made sure that everything that I've done has been backed and by reading, and the reading has actually probably informed me more than ChatGPT has because I've been coming back to ChatGPT with the reading. But I just want to make sure that that's like ethically sound. If ChatGPT taught me the phrase excitatory principal neuron, do I need to cite that somehow? You get me? So, but yeah, we'll say that it's almost as if I just learned it in a dictionary. Our work session of me getting these numbers and none of the sounds saved. I don't know why that is, but that's fine, I guess. So that was like a really long hassle of just navigating a bunch of different papers. Like I'd read paper, and then the other thing is that I had to, this was so nitpicky, but I basically had to find the exact type of rat that was in the paper that I'm basing this off of and find the exact neuron count for those types of rats. Like I couldn't make it this other type of rat. So that was like a hassle. Like I had to find a bunch of different, basically hunt down a bunch of different papers. So you can see these are the ones I ended up on. I'll just show you what we talked about on ChatGPT. It's not that exciting. I was actually being funny and interesting in my little like work session. Like I talked about all sorts of different things, but I guess the universe chose to not make me funny and interesting today. Okay, well, while we're waiting for ChatGPT to get its blank together, yeah, I basically found these neurons. Oh, and what the other thing that I basically had ChatGPT do is to figure the ratio out to basically scale down the numbers the way that was necessary. So, for example, 420,000 neurons is way too much to model in a computational model. So, it basically used these ratios to scale it down. And so, instead of having 420,000 excitatory neurons in the CA1, I'm going to have 1,000 and then 9 inhibitory neurons, just so my computer doesn't explode from working too hard. For whatever reason, it's driving me insane. It's not letting me show anything here, but that's fine. Um, yeah, like I said, once the ChatGPT text, oh wait, no, this is a new one. Once the chats start getting too like overloaded, it's really hard. Like they don't load that well and stuff. So I basically had to re-explain my whole experiment in like another section again. And this was what was interesting is that actually after I told it this level of information, it assumed that I was smarter basically than in my last one. Like I think it was like, oh, you actually know what you're talking about. Meanwhile, the other one was like, you kind of know what you're talking about, but you mostly don't. And so it started basically responding to me in a really like high level way, which is good, but I was like, I don't know what you're talking about for some of these things because I'm not actually like as advanced as the project is making it sound like I am. Like my knowledge is really niche right now, and it took me a long time to get to that. So, but I basically wanted to know, should I have dendrites? I wasn't sure if I needed that, to be honest. And it was telling me a lot of different things, honestly. But then it said to start without it, but then whatever. But then I asked it to respond to me with that same voice from the other chat, which is of a highly rigorous reviewer from one of these top tier journals. And they basically told me that I probably should have dendrites. They don't have to be super sophisticated, but they have to be there. Again, do you see how it's just responding to me in like a smarter way? And that honestly, that gave me a little bit of like a high that was like, I don't want you to stop thinking I'm like super smart and like know what I'm talking about. Cause I know the minute I start actually asking you questions, you're gonna be like, oh, this girl is not as advanced as I thought she was. So then I said, I I don't know. I was just being funny, but I was like, I'm a very smart and intelligent person, but just in case someone else is not, can you explain this simpler, this section? You and me were so highly intelligent, but just in case someone else doesn't understand, like a 23-year-old girl who's highly intelligent and has a good degree, not me though, but she does understand neuroscience. So I
I think I was able to trick ChatGPT. I think it was convinced. But anyways, basically it did explain to me then, but it didn't explain anything new to me actually, to be honest. So it didn't end on a very exciting note. It just told me exactly what I was already doing. I think it just didn't understand me well enough. That was the least entertaining way to put. Like I the first time around when I recorded this, I was actually being like funny, interesting. It was a very interesting work session, but unfortunately, Teams decided it wanted to take all the sound out of the video. So I guess you guys weren't meant to hear my opinions on Conrad from The Summer I Turned Pretty in this video.
In case you did want to hear my opinions on The Summer I Turned Pretty, because I watched a new episode today. It was like episode what, 5 or something, where they're like Belly's wedding is gonna be in the next episode, but basically I literally cried for 20 minutes after the episode, not because anything sad happened, but because I was so mad that men like Conrad literally don't exist and it's all fake. And it's all something that women write and make up to make ourselves feel better about the fact that men don't like exist like that. And I was like, stop lying to us. Men are not this perfect. I was crying for like 20 minutes. I was like, how can I be so in love with a man that doesn't exist? So that's everything. I wish I could have showed you guys me getting the actual numbers because that was like a whole adventure. It was very interesting, but yeah, basically it's cool because now I feel like my method section is just shaping up, and I feel like it actually have a sense of how I'm gonna write it. I was nervous for quite a while there because I was seeing everybody else's method sections in the papers that I was reading. And I was like, how on earth am I gonna get to that level of like technicality with it? I was like, I don't feel like I know enough to even do that, but I feel like as I've gone along and I started putting the numbers together of everything that is necessary, I've been seeing it coming together and I've been like encouraged, like, okay, I'm actually doing something. I think this has been my most boring work video to date, but I hope somebody derives benefit from it in some way, shape, or form. Thank you for watching.